Imagine this. You wake up on the 28th of May 2015 to see that the new game from Nintendo has dropped. It's called Splatoon. So you eagerly go into the next game store in your location, buy the game, pop it into your Wii U, and get greeted with this. This right there, that's childhood! And while I personally got pretty damn late into the game, it still holds a very special place in my heart. And it saddens me to tell you that the servers of it are shutting down, or have shut down by when this video released, I assume, on the 8th of April 2024. So take this video as a dedication to how great this game is and why I think Nintendo shouldn't have shut down the servers just because the Wii U and the 3DS are not really worth it anymore in their eyes. While I'm not introducing the game to you just yet, let me show you how the game actually introduces you to the world and the gameplay. You start off by creating your Inkling. You can choose between male and female, the skin color, the eye color, and that's pretty much it. Compared to what we have now, that's, nothing. It really isn't. But once you created your little Inkling, your little gay cephalopod, you get tossed into the tutorial world where they explain to you how the controls work. So basically, you just follow the path, shoot balloons, and then end up with the Squid Sisters telling you that there's something wrong. And an introduction to the town. This is Inkopolis. Or is it Greater Inkopolis? I don't remember. If you know Splatoon 3 and you downloaded the DLC pack, you're probably familiar with this setup. However, it looks quite a bit different here. You have stuff missing, like the train station, that you don't have because you only have this one hub world in Splatoon 1. Spike looks a little bit different. The boy's got a glow up, don't get me wrong. And overall, you're missing a lot of Small Fry and Octolinks walking around. And that is because Octolinks do only exist in a story mode that we're not going to talk about just yet. You have to skip a chapter for that. And as for introductions, this game actually does great at explaining how the mechanics work and what the gimmicks of this game is. With that being said, why don't we look at some weapons? Now, Splatoon 1, as the starting point of this series, does not really have as much variety in the kinds of weapon you have, but rather in the kits that you get for your weapons. As an example for that, if you look at the arrow spray, which you get by completing the story mode, it has 3 different kits for it. As does the bamboozler, out of every charger that there is. But okay, whatever floats your boat, Nintendo. And while you have everyone's favorite weapon kinds like the shooter, the blaster, the splatling, the charger, the roller, and for some reason the brush, which I thought was introduced in Splatoon 2, but apparently it has been there since the first game. If you're looking for something more specific like the dualies, or if you're completely new to the series, the Splatana, for example, you might want to look way further ahead into the future, because you're not getting that here. Now, of course, in true Splatoon fashion, every kit comes with a sub-weapon, the so-called bomb, and this is no different in Splatoon 1. But what you're getting is not necessarily what you're used to. We do have the classics such as the Splat Bomb, the Suction Bomb, and the Burst Bomb. We also have something that you don't really see in the series again, the so-called Seeker, which later turns into the mixture of an auto bomb and a curling bomb. Basically, the Seeker acts like a curling bomb with a homing option. That means it targets one player and then rushes towards it until there's an obstacle or until the timer runs out, I guess. It's actually pretty powerful, have to admit to that. I understand why they changed it though. We also have the Ink Mine and the Disruptor, which you can see in Splatoon 2 and 3 as well. Not really much of a big fan of them, just because I don't think they do much damage. What's also a returning thing, or I guess what got its origin here, is the point sensor, the splash wall, the sprinkler, and the squid beacon. What I find interesting about the latter, the squid beacon, is that while you can use it, it has a one-time usage. Maybe a 2-time usage, I'm not sure. Whereas in the later games, you can use it up to, I believe, 3 times. Unless you use it yourself. I'm not really doing anything with the squid beacon. I'm just counting on other teammates to put it down if they have it in their kit. Now, let me introduce you to the specials. Much like the other 2 games, Splatoon 1, of course, had specials with the kits of the weapons that you could get. And while there are at least 4 familiar specials in this game that made a return, there is a few that not really did. One of them is Bomb Rush, which did make a return in Splatoon 2, but hasn't been seen since. We then have the Bobbler, which essentially is the shield special that you get with every, well, starter weapon and then a few other ones. We do have the Echolocator, which is just a glorified pointy sensor. You know, it just marks where people are and makes it easier for everyone to see where the other team is. And then you can strike a kill, or splat, if you wanted to. And as the things that return, we have the Ink Strike, the Inkzooka, the Killer Whale, and the Kraken. All of these make a return in Splatoon 3 in one way or another, which I personally found very interesting the second they announced that something like the Kraken makes a return. You're not an online player? No problem! Splatoon, much like the other two games, offers you a single-player story mode, which is supposed to not only explain some of the lore behind the game and what happened before, well, you landed in Inkopolis, but it's also a good way to get familiar with certain weapons and certain mechanics that the game offers. It has, I believe, about 27 levels, all utilizing different things that you don't really see on stages, aside from maybe the little propeller things that are on some stages. Especially in the later games and the shifty stations during the Splatoon 2 Splatfests. Overall, the story is pretty simple. You play as Agent 3, a young inkling that got kind of introduced to the Octarian War with Inklings by Captain Cuttlefish, who then gets kidnapped and you have to save him from the big final boss, DJ Octavio. And then later on you meet Agent 1 and Agent 2, which are Kelly and Marie, and then they guide you towards defeating DJ Octavio, and as they play the Calamari incantation, everything goes well and the Great Zapfish is returned. Oh, I didn't mention that, did I? Yeah, basically the Octarians, or I guess DJ Octavio, captured what's called the Great Zapfish, which is used to power the Octarian cities and I believe part of their weaponry. It's been a while and I didn't really read up on the lore. You can find the hidden secrets of the story behind Splatoon in the so-called Sunken Scrolls, which are hidden in pretty much every level. And then you celebrate a huge party in the end credits scene. Did I mention it took me nearly 8 years to actually finish the story mode, because I never touched it again after attempting to beat it once and not getting far. I got to the second section and that's it. You do get a few things for finishing the story mode though, such as basically the armor that you're wearing throughout the entire story mode, the so-called hero armor, and then you get the Octarian armor, which looks pretty interesting on an Inkling, and you get a few weapons, such as the Aerospray. That's pretty much it, I believe. You do get the ability to replay the credit scene and ink everything if you wanted to, and you of course can always defeat DJ Octavio again if you feel like it. Where there's turf war, there has to be stages. This is where most of the multiplayer takes place, and Splatoon has about 16 stages if I'm not mistaken. A lot of these have been ported over to the later games, you know, Splatoon 2, Splatoon 3, I've mentioned them way too much in this video. But there is one single stage that has not been ported yet, which is interesting, and I'm hoping that they will do it in the future. But let me get into not only a small comparison of the stages, but also into what makes them unique and what's the fun part about them. Ah yes, Urchin Underpass. If you've seen anything about Splatoon, you've probably seen this stage. It has been available in the demo in 2014, and apparently it's featured in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is interesting. Overall, this is a pretty basic stage, and only now, doing a little bit of research, I realized there's 2 stages that haven't been ported, and this is one of them. Apparently, this one is Splatoon 1 exclusive, which I completely missed out on, because I swear I've seen and played this in Splatoon 2, though I'm probably confusing this with a different stage. There's not much to say about it. It has both higher and lower levels, and you can pretty much get to the spawn point and spawn camp people if you felt like it, which makes the stage pretty annoying to deal with when you consider that, you know, you kind of can't escape immediate death unless you stay on the little spawn platform. Walleye Warehouse, Wally Warehouse, Welly Warehouse? Whatever. This has been a stage that apparently has been featured in the global test fire for Splatoon 1 and has been ported to Splatoon 2. I do have quite a bit of memory with this one, since it seemed to have kind of always been in rotation when I was playing back in the day. And even now I can tell you that this and another one have been stages that have been in rotation pretty much every goddamn time I booted up the game. Not that it's a terrible stage. It's kinda weird, but it has charm to it. You once again can walk up all the way to the spawn point, which is kind of very annoying. Also, there's lots of spots for chargers to hide, so you might need to be careful when you're looking around here. And since I mentioned that it has been ported, yes, it's the exact same stage as Splatoon 1. Which is interesting, because you have stuff like Hammerhead Bridge, which I'm gonna get to later on, that did get quite a lot of changes in not only their layout, but the way that they look. No, Wally Warehouse remains to be the same as seen on Splatoon 1, which probably adds to the feeling of I'm so familiar with this stage that I'm kind of sick of seeing it. But hey, some things don't need changing, am I right? Now to the second stage that is going to be rotting in Splatoon 1 server shutdown hell and will never see the light of day again, probably. Splat Spray Ring. It's an interesting thing, because that's the first stage I think of whenever somebody mentions Splatoon 1. And I haven't really played on it as often. Well, I mean, scratch that. I play it on it pretty much every day now, because why is that thing always in rotation? It's not terrible by any means. It is, however, very weird with the way that what seems to be the main focus is so far in the back that it just makes the whole stage layout look kind of weird. But maybe that's just on me. Notable here, for example, is the little swinging platform that you get that snipers love to stand on, I can assume. I haven't encountered that many on it, luckily. There is not much else to say, except that this has been in the global test fire as well. Which is cool, and I'm hoping that we get to see this, maybe an updated version of it, I don't know. I don't know if it needs any fixing. But it has been Splat Spray Ring. And now we meet Arowana Mall. Personally, I have more memories with this from Splatoon 2 than Splatoon 1, but it does feel kind of interesting a concept. We have a lot of high ground and a lot of slopes that you have to ink to get up on, a lot of walls, but once again the ability to absolutely spawn camp the shit out of the other team. I don't know why this is such a big issue. I'm just glad that we have better spawn protection than what we do in the later games. Right? Anybody else misses the spawn platforms? I want them back, please. But there's not much to say about it otherwise. It's just a mall. A mall street? It is a section of a mall. I don't know, there's not much. Sure, outside there's a lot going on, and there has been a glitch, which I don't know if it has been patched or not, for Rainmaker, where you're pretty much untouchable, though I don't believe it gets you anywhere. I dig it up, but honestly, I don't even know if it's still available anymore. From what I can tell and read up on, there is no difference between the stage in Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2. What I did find, however, is that there apparently was a bug when you used the splashdown with the dualies that you would clip through the ground and just kind of fall out of bounds and die. I don't know how that happens, aside from they probably copied the stage from the first game, put it into the second, and then forgot that splashdown is a thing that exists, so people just kind of, you know, perished on sight. Black Belly Skate Park is another one of the stages that I think of when you mention Splatoon 1. It's what it says, it's a skate park, and that means it has a lot of ramps and a lot of steep inclines, whatever you call that you have to ink to swim up on, and this huge platform in the middle that makes you look over the entire map once you're on it. Be careful though, that's a very popular spot to get splatted on. And speaking of experience, the amount of kills I've gotten from that spot alone is insane. You're one roller, you swing it once, and you get like 5 kills in a second. I'm exaggerating, but it's pretty much the truth, and I feel like if they did port that to Splatoon 3, it would still be the truth. There's not much else to mention, it's just a skate park. It looks pretty neat, it returns in at least one game. That's all. You can get spawn camped. I'm realizing that's a huge issue that these stages have. You know, we complain about hallways in Splatoon 3, but getting spawn camped, that's worse. Since I'm talking differences and the stage has been ported, the only difference that I could find and read up on is that the spawn platform has been higher a little bit and moved tad bit further in the back so that spawn camping is not as likely or not as possible. It doesn't stop your team from getting obliterated though, because they can just literally hang out all at the front, in front of your spawn point. Welcome to Port Mackerel. Mackerel? There's no second E in there. This is literally the epitome of being a roller, because while everybody else is rushing ahead to get as much of the middle as possible, you're kind of left inking every crevice and space that nobody else really cares about. It does have those cool containers that you can snipe from, and just generally get kind of an advantage the second the other team gets a little bit too close to you. And then the middle is filled with some containers and these little forklift things roaming around, which, fun fact, if you accidentally bump into them, they stop and then go in the other direction they were going. So for example, if it's driving backwards and it bumps into you, it stops, the light on it blinks red for a second, or maybe a little bit longer, and then it starts moving forward again to not bump into you again. You can't ink them, you can't stand on top of them. I don't know if that's really worth it. This one has also been ported to Splatoon 2. My very little research actually shows that the only differences in Splatoon 2 is that it has been slightly modified in its layout and that there have been sponges, which is pretty cool. And what I remember, one of the differences is that towards the spawn, one of the containers that lead towards what's more of the middle point actually has an inkable surface, which just makes it so much easier to snipe from it. I don't know why that would be the thing. Also, what they removed in Splatoon 2 is the containers in the middle, which I find interesting, because I swear to God, I remember them always having been there, but apparently they're missing in Splatoon 2, and I just always remembered the layout from the first game. Kelp Dome is another one of those stages that I absolutely love with everything in my heart. Mostly because I just have good memories with it. Also, it's been featured in the story mode, and I guess that's why it's always in my head for some reason. It does return on Splatoon 2, and I believe the layout of it is actually pretty interesting. You have like these platforms up above that you can walk on, and the second you go into swim form, you know, squid form, you fall through because it's, well, it's like graters, I believe. Like cheese graters, but not for cheese. They're squid graters? Can you call it that? Also, the fact that you're in an actual dome where they grow plants, I believe that's why it's called Kelp Dome. You know, emphasis on dome is actually pretty freaking cool. And you can see those little plants going around everywhere with a small platform in the middle that all those walkable things, all those catwalks, it's just called that, lead to. There are some surfaces that have ramps that you can only use from one side, which I always found pretty cool. And I have very vivid memories with that, and I don't really remember what exactly happens in those memories. I just know that it feels very, very familiar to me. As for changes in Splatoon 2, there doesn't seem to be anything. They just ripped that thing straight from the game files of the first one and slapped it onto the second one. You know, not that it's a bad stage, but it just leaves less to show. Then again, as I stated before, does perfection really need any changing? Ooh, Bluefin Depot. Definitely a stage that I keep repeating myself. I have memories with it. Who would have thought? I spent like 70 hours before revisiting the game again. You know, I've seen some stages. I've played some Splatfests. Who would have thought? This one is quite a bit of fun, and there is a stage in Splatoon 2 that I felt like was similar to this, so my head kind of mixed it up. But the second I saw it again, I instantly recognized where to go and what to do. And it's been fun to be back. Literally what you have is a platform up high, where, I believe for once, people can't actually spawn camp you. For once, I believe. They can go up to what's close to be your base, but not your base? Also, there's two pathways that like get separated by, is it a river? Is it the ocean? Is it a lake? I don't know what that is. But basically, the two stages are connected with those little pathways, which are just small hallways with like open walls, and you can shoot across them if you really wanted to. Apparently, it's also an abandoned train station, which is cool. I never saw it as that, but you know, whatever, it still looks pretty damn cool. Also, Bluefin Depot is the first one of the list here that gets featured in Splatoon 3, if I'm not mistaken, and it's gone through some very drastic changes. When I first landed on the stage, after having remembered that it exists in Splatoon 1, and remembering having played it a lot with a friend, for some reason it's been in rotation during a play session that we had that lasted about 2 hours. I don't know, I've just felt like I've been on it a lot in my life. It just felt different in Splatoon 3. Not only is the spawn absolutely different from what we have in Splatoon 1, the little hallways that connect the spawn points also are different. You can recognize it, but it's like, if I told you, draw me the layout of Bluefin Depot without looking it up after you haven't been playing for a good few years, I feel like that's what I'd get. It has the same vibes, it's trying real hard to be Bluefin Depot, it's not bad by any means, it's just not the original Bluefin Depot. And that's both good and bad. Because what makes the original so unique is lacking in the third game, in the newest version of it, and you'd think that they'd keep that. And what makes it unique? Well, the entire fucking spawn point. Look at it! It's so drastically different, I almost didn't recognize it. There's some stages on here that I revisited after having played them in the third game, and I was like, okay, cool, this is slightly changed. Or, you know, even in the second game, where it's like, okay, they slightly changed that to make it like a quality of life update. This one? Absolutely different. It's like the cousin of the version of the first stage. This one's gonna be controversial. Murray Towers. You either love it or you hate it, and I understand both ways. Having played it in the last few final hours on the live stream that I did, if you missed it, don't worry. We just had one hacker, and that's the only interesting thing that happened during it. Everything else was just normal Splatoon 1 shenanigans and turf war. Murray Towers is notorious for getting sniped the shit out of you no matter where you are. This is a sniper's favorite stage and basically their home base, I believe, and it shows. It has been featured in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate though, which makes it incredibly interesting, except now it's just one half of the tower and it's in like 2D and not as interesting, but it's cool to see how they incorporated the entire, like, going down in this almost spiral pattern that it has, which is what makes the stage unique, because you literally just have two solid spears that you spawn on, and you can't get spawn camped on this one. They learned their lesson with the early ones. And then you just have a middle platform, which, you know, is where most of the stuff happens. You can climb up the walls, and there's a few hidden ways on the sides for you to get up on. Can be tricky, especially if you have a few snipers on the round. They will get you. It doesn't matter where you are, they will get you. Also, Murray Towers is where the hacker happened, which was pretty cool because we had a squid party, but somebody didn't get the memo. From what I read on, the main difference in Splatoon 2 of this stage is that they added ink rails, which is cool and good, because now you just can't get sniped as easily, I believe. I don't know, I always remember the stage without the ink rails, and I don't know if that's for the better or not, but probably not. There's also been more ground added to it, which makes it more difficult to fall off, which honestly has been a problem in Splatoon 1, because it was just so easy to miscalculate your jump, fall off, and die a horrible death. Other than that, the stage pretty much remains the same, and facing off a sniper is still a pain in the ass on this one. You know, as I said, it's basically the living, breathing grounds of snipers, and I hate it for that, but I also love it. Hear me out about Camp Triggerfish. The aesthetic of it, super cool. I absolutely love it, especially the little, what's it called, skybox that you have, like your surroundings and the background stuff. The stage itself also looks pretty damn cool with, you know, how it's kind of like, I guess, a playground on the camp. You know, camp, rare fish. It has a lot of water surrounding it, and the main gimmick of it is the little, gates that close in the last minute of the match. Which, by the way, I figured out the platform that you get to on that is actually pretty good ground to not only snipe from, I believe, but also just be stupid and toss bombs everywhere. Much like most stages, this one has been ported to Splatoon 2. I just have more memories in Splatoon 2 with this one. I don't know why, I still love it, and I was surprised to see that it's actually from Splatoon 1. You know, because I remember it being from Splatoon 2 this entire time, which just isn't actually exactly true. The differences between the version of Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 happens to be that they removed the second gate that you can climb on, so you only have one, but they made the platform a little larger, which means that the weird thing in the middle that kind of, you know, separates and blocks the view is gone. That has been the thing that confused me the most coming back to the original version of the stage, because I did not remember that being this way. Either way, you can still kill people pretty easily. You know. Rest is the same, except that they added ink crates and sponges. Which is interesting, but sure. I guess if you're desperate enough to just jump over the gap that separates the two sections, then you can do that now. Flounder Heights, the rooftop of an apartment complex. Quite a large map, not gonna lie. Also utilizes the height differences that you can get, which is pretty cool if you're playing a weapon that has an advantage from that, such as chargers, or splatlings, or the jet squelcher. Dear god, I hate the jet squelcher. It did make a comeback in Splatoon 3, and much like the other stages, has gotten quite a bit of a layout change. The Splatoon 3 version of this is not only a lot smaller and compact, but also a lot less interesting. You basically just have your spawn point, a little platform that's right in front of it, and a little bit like lower than your spawn point, and no way to get spawn camped, which by the way also happens in Splatoon 1. You cannot get spawn camped on Flounder Heights. They learned from their mistakes, I'm telling you! It's so good to see those stages later on! But basically, what's the same is kind of, sort of the layout. It's just shrunken down, like, they shaved off so much from the roof. I don't know how you make that make sense in, like, lore and stuff, if you want to have it make sense, you know? But it's still a pain in the ass to actually play on it, since you can just get sniped and, like, camped so easily. Why they can't get to your spawn point necessarily. I mean, you can with a zip cast, but let's be real, you can get to almost anywhere with a zip cast if you're smart enough. It's just not fun, because people will be tossing bombs everywhere and will be shooting up to get you. There's not much else that I can say about it. It really, the biggest difference here is just, it's so much smaller. It's not even that tall. Sure, you have like one wall you can climb up, but honestly, that's nothing compared to the original. This bridge was supposed to be connecting Inkopolis from Greater Inkopolis, so basically it was connecting Splatoon 1's hub world to Splatoon's 2 hub world. However, in the first game, this bridge is still under construction and not finished, which is a very safe environment for kids to be walking on, or just generally anybody to be on, you know, a bridge under construction. The map itself is actually quite long and has this weird scaffolding thing in the middle, which of course later gets removed, but we get to that. We get to that. It makes a return in Splatoon 3, looks drastically different there. I mean, to be fair, if it takes you like 7 years to finish a bridge, you shouldn't be surprised if it looks way different when you actually see it being finished. Now, the main gimmick of this has to be just the height differences. You can get up to the middle through the little grates, grid things, and, you know, just drop down whenever. And I believe you can get spawn camped on this one. It's all coming from memory, like, I could be wrong, but, you know, you're seeing the footage on screen. What's different in Splatoon 3 compared to Splatoon 1? Well, aside from the bridge finally being finished, the looks, the references, everything? It added a little ceiling, which is interesting, and if you zoom out enough, you would be able to tell that there's actual cars driving on it, which implies something weird for some reason. I heard that you were talking about the references I mentioned. Well, actually, if you take the camera to the left side of your spawn point, you can see the Nile statue, which is basically telling us that Octo expansion is very much real and happened, and we're all glad that it did, because Commander Tartar is no more. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please do yourself a favor and actually look up what Octo expansion is and the story about it. It's fucking cool. Now, there's not much else to say about Hammerhead Bridge. It's just the finished version of the construction run that we had. Except now it fucking sucks. I don't know why I prefer the construction ground, probably because it feels new and fresher. It is super cool to see it actually being finished. This does kind of add a feel of continuity to the story and all that, even though it's just one single map. But I do feel like this stage again suffers from being compressed. I feel like it's just a tiny bit smaller, shorter than what the original was, though maybe that's just a feeling. Much like the name suggests, Museum di Alfonsino, Alfonsino? Whatever, is a museum! Go figure! Decorated nicely with all kinds of paintings, sculptures, and, well, other interesting things. This stage is, well, much like pretty much any other stage of Splatoon 1, quite unique in its layout. You have those elevator platforms close to your spawn, and then going around to spawn close towards the middle, and of course you have those weird spinny platforms. One close to your spawn, one closer to the middle, and one right in the middle. They're very interesting because they're annoying to get on and off from. Now, to be honest, I never understood why you have one in the middle, though I assume that one was placed to, you know, spawn camp people, essentially, because that's what can happen. Once you get somebody onto the middle platform of your spawn area, you know, once you're in the middle, jump across and then go towards the little platform that's there, it's pretty damn hard to get rid of them if they're persistent, because once there's one, there's gonna be five. I know that the team consists of 4, but there's gonna be 5, trust me. Somehow, another one's gonna sneak in. You actually get onto the spawn area with the little spinny platform close towards the middle, because you can then jump onto this little more elevated platform and then make your way all the way up and across and around, and it's just overall very annoying. This stage has also been featured in Splatoon 3. The biggest difference in this stage from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 3 happens to be that the spinning platform in the middle has been removed. The stage overall going towards the middle has been made a little wider, because where you once could fall down if you're not careful enough while inking the little elevator platform that's going across to what's essentially towards the middle. I don't know if we want to count it as the middle, because I don't feel like it is. I still count it as part of the spawn point, despite it probably not being that. There's a little, like, platform to catch you before you fall. That's, like, the only noticeable difference. It is still quite easy to get spawn camped on this one, and people are still very persistent on this map for some reason. Another more subtle change is that the grate that used to be in the elevator platforms that go towards the spawn has been removed. Well, not really entirely removed. I think it has just been shortened. It's still kind of there, but not as prominent as it was in Splatoon 1. Though maybe that's just me. Oh boy, Mahi Mahi Resort. Hit or miss, I believe. It's very cool in the fact that the main gimmick of it is that, you know, the water levels sink, and then at the beginning they're quite high, so you get more platform in the later match and like the last minute of it. Overall, it has a lot of like corners and stuff that you can use, quite a few platforms that are sometimes tricky to get on if you're stupid like me. There's not much else to say. This is a quite small stage, but the main gimmick of it makes it pretty damn special and memorable in my opinion. Just be careful, cause falling into the water is quite easy. This stage does make a return in Splatoon 3, and boy do I have a lot to say about it. Are you ready for the hottest take of this video yet? I say Splatoon 1's Mahi Mahi Resort is the best version of this stage that they have ever released. Just look at it! What happened? Did they go bankrupt? What is this resort even doing anymore? It's completely different! Did they just change the layout of the pool because you just didn't like it anymore? What about the fans? Didn't they listen? I'm pretty sure somebody started a petition to make this go back to normal, and I'm the one that signed it about 5 fucking times. Mahi Mahi was so unrecognizable to me when I first played it on Splatoon 3 that I didn't even know that it was supposed to be Mahi Mahi. Legitimately, I was so confused. I remember the vibrancy, the little like balloon things that were put up close to the spawn, the cool colors, the obvious squid shape that you have that is the pool. What happened? Why is it boring? Literally the only complaint I have about it looks boring. And then they changed it and it still looks like crap. It plays like crap. At least they still kept the main gimmick, right? The water sinking? Yeah, they actually did keep that. I don't know why I made it sound like that was something that I'm questioning. Overall, drastically different. Same as Bluefin Depot, where it's just drastically different in a very bad way. Piranha Pit! Another one of those outdoor maps that actually looks pretty damn cool. What used to be an old mining facility is now a stage to turf on. I don't know why you do that. These stages keep being very questionable in origin. The cool part about Piranha Pit are those conveyor belts. You know, the things that you try to walk on but they slow you down so much that you get splatted in an instant. Unless you're smart and use your ink, or have walk speed, or have swim speed, or just overall are smart and try to avoid this. Another one of those stages where they learn from past mistakes and you're not necessarily spawn campable. They can kind of get close to your spawn, but I'd say it's fairly easy to get rid of them, because they can't be right next to you as you try to just exist. Ruining the fun further than they already do by just being an asshole, you know? Oh well. I think design-wise the stage is pretty cool, and it has been ported to Splatoon 2. Now Splatoon 2 pretty much kept it the same. You know, don't change what's already perfect. The only differences in it are that the two conveyor belts in the middle have been moved further apart. I'm assuming so it's not as easy to get onto the platform close to the spawn. And they've also added some sponges, which makes climbing just a lot easier. Changes I necessarily didn't really notice too much. I mean, I guess the conveyor belts I could have noticed, but too caught up with having the Splatoon 2 version of this in my memory and just not noticing this at all. Genuinely, I was confused that this was a Splatoon 1 stage at first, just because I've been playing it more in Splatoon 2, but again, that's a personal thing. Overall, again, it didn't change at all, and it's still pretty cool, and you're still kind of spawn campable, but not really. As a self-diagnosed gamer, I'd say that Anchovy Games is a pretty neat stage. It actually takes place in a game studio, which is shown by not only the little, like, arcade machines that are scattered in corners, or the little concept drawings that are plastered on the walls, or the little pixel squid in the middle of a carpet on the stage. Just overall, you get the office vibes pretty damn well. This stage actually utilizes little fans, little ventilation stuff that you can shoot at in order to make platforms either go upwards or move forwards or backwards or downwards, or they just move platforms basically. That's what makes it very unique, and this is why it's been staying in my memory ever since playing it on Splatoon 2. Was that a smart way to incorporate that the stage has been ported to Splatoon 2? Probably not. Not that many memories of playing it on Splatoon 1, except for that one time where they had the Pokemon Splatfest, where it was Pokemon Blue versus Pokemon Red, and basically the entire opponent team that I had, which was Pokemon Blue, or I guess just Team Blue, they kind of all disconnected, which was interesting. I have this very vivid memory of this. I don't remember how that game actually played out. I believe it didn't. You know, when everyone kind of dies the second the game starts, there's nothing to fight. Much like some other stages mentioned here, Splatoon 2 didn't really change anything about it. The only thing that's really different is that they added even more propeller platforms, which is probably what I remember, but I couldn't pinpoint to where they added that. And they added sponges. They love adding sponges to stages. They keep doing it. I forgot to mention this, but Anchovy Games is one of those stages where you do not get spawn camped. People cannot reach your spawn. People can't even get that close to your spawn. Which is good. Which is amazing, and we love it, and we love to see more of it. Unless, of course, they have an Ink Strike. In Splatoon 1. The Ink Strike Splatoon 1 specifically, because that you can just fire anywhere if you wanted to. That's the only exception. Other than that, Anchovy Games stays the same, and it's still pretty damn cool. Naturally, since Splatoon 1 is the first game of a trilogy, this one has a lot of differences compared to the other games. A few of them I've already mentioned, such as the things in the stage or the weapon section. If you didn't pay attention, I suggest you go back. Though it's okay, you didn't have to pay attention throughout the entire video. It's like way too long and takes me the entire month to make. Even more than the entire month. I'm rolling! But here's some more minor differences that I saw and noticed. The first thing that you notice when you've played the other games and come back to one of them, especially if you played Splatoon 2 or 3 and then come back to Splatoon 1, is that the visuals are kind of different. I'm talking that Splatoon 1 always kind of felt darker, but somehow still vibrant in colors, and I feel like that's kind of missing in Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3. The difference between the latter two games is that Splatoon 2 has a warmer shader, whereas Splatoon 3 has a darker or colder shader, which is interesting. But I've always had Splatoon 1 in memory with having these kind of muted colors, which just isn't really the case. If you compare the ink tones, like just generally the color, you'll realize that actually Splatoon 1 is quite vibrant compared to the other two games. Another thing that's quite different is the way that amiibos work in Splatoon 1. Whereas in the other two games, you kind of scan them, talk to them, and then they give you a headpiece and then wait for you to level up. A legit level, not just a catalog. In Splatoon 1, you have to fulfill challenges that take place in story mode to gain not only the amiibo gear, but later on stuff like the hero replica weapons, you know, things like the charger, the roller. I believe there was another one, I just don't remember it. Which is stuff that you already get handed to you in Splatoon 2 story mode, and in Splatoon 3 you just use every single base weapon that there is depending on the level. Kind of like Octo Expansion does it, which is cool on its own. But Splatoon 1 just adds this extra like reward feeling to it. What's also cool is that Splatoon 1 actually has minigames. Sure, we can argue that Splatoon 2 had squid beats, which you can unlock in Splatoon 1 as well, by the way. I just never finished that because I didn't finish all amiibo challenges. Splatoon 3 has absolutely nothing. I get that Splatoon 3 instead has this huge walkable lobby that you do not have in the other two games, but honestly, we're missing squid beats. They removed the machine entirely and repurposed what used to be Squid Jump into what's now, well, Hotlantis. Your hot topic of choice, I believe. It's just kind of lame, because Squid Jump actually gave you something to do while you waited for the stages to like finish loading or people to come into the lobby and all that. It's actually pretty neat, and it's very addicting. As is Squid Beats! Why did they remove it? Nobody knows. We have a jukebox now, I guess. The little bit of charm that made Splatoon 1 special as well is stuff like the light motives that I've been playing. Little snippets from certain songs that play around when you stand in the pulsar, like close to certain things. More noticeable, it's actually Calamari Incantation that plays at one spot, unless I'm confused now with Splatoon 2. Oh well. Another thing that stays the same throughout the series actually is that the idols that greet you, which only happens if you like look at them for a few seconds and they start waving at you and then go back to talking. Did you know that Splatoon 1 has some Easter eggs? More notably ones that you wouldn't really think of are sort of Easter eggs, or just small fun things. An example of that would be that at the very corner of the sunken scrolls there is, I believe, a little zapfish, like the plush zapfish, the small zapfish, rotating when you flip through the pages. And then in the private battle section, when you enter a password, you can do a certain sequence to play Calamari Incantation. Of course, abilities are something that comes to mind, where stuff disappeared or has just gotten a rebranding, you know, things like Defense Up kind of disappeared because it was too powerful. Same as how Power Up kind of disappeared in Splatoon 3 because nobody needs that on a blaster. Seriously, nobody needs that on a blaster. You have different abilities, like the Object Shredder, which doesn't really exist in the other two games because you can't really get rid of objects caused by specials, like the Wave Breaker. But you have different things that take the place for this, like how you have an ability that lets you see where certain subs are placed, which I guess is pretty damn neat if you have a seeker roaming around or if there's an ink mine somewhere that you might want to be aware of. Now, the local multiplayer option is way different in Splatoon 1. Whereas in the other two games, you literally need to have two switches with the games next to each other, or at least in the same room, to play against each other in a sort of private battle kind of way. In Splatoon 1, it's a whole different game mode, where you used to just ink the surfaces, like it's just turf war. In the other two, like that's what it used to be, or is now. What it was in Splatoon 1 is a sort of capture the flag kind of thing. You had these balloons that were floating around, and you had like a few select stages you could pick from. And one person had the gamepad, while the other one had to use technically any supported controller that there was. Personally, we took the Pro controller because I have an off-brand one. And then you have a few weapons that you could pick. The person that gets the most balloons, which, you know, are equal to a certain amount of points, wins. And while it was fun and entertaining for like half an hour, this isn't really getting across what Splatoon really is, and I feel like the other two games just do it better, because you have the real deal, you have actual turf war and not a minigame that doesn't really work. And who could forget that because the Wii U had a gamepad with a touchscreen, which is essentially just some form of prototype version of a Switch when you think about it. Splatoon 1 really uses the gamepad, like the touchscreen of it, where you can do fun stuff like check your teammates, what kind of equipment they have, check where what is on the map, actually jump to people, and of course use certain specials. That of course falls away with the Switch, because the Switch only has one big screen, and when you plug it into the dock, you don't really have any other screen to look at other than your TV. But with all great things comes an end. And so I streamed the last 3 hours I was able to play on the Splatoon 1 official servers, until they eventually shut down. And this video, while it's been very long, as you can probably see, maybe even split into parts, is more of a passion project and a love letter to the game. It's still very sad to see that the servers have shut down officially. Of course, you could do stuff like Pretendo and just boot them back up and start from scratch. And as I've mentioned in the live stream that I've done on the 8th of April, I might do that. However, it won't be the same. And it's just generally very sad to know that a piece of your childhood will now be unplayable forever. Unless, of course, you know, you use the different servers, but that doesn't really count. So a huge thank you to everyone who's been sticking through this, who's been actually watching and listening to this. It means a lot. This wasn't the greatest video, I'm aware of it, but hey, it's better than nothing.